Hey guys, what's going on? It's Aiden Jacobs, and I'm here today with another Helix video. Now, just a forewarning, if you have owned a Helix for a little while now, this video is not for you. This is for people who have just gotten a Helix and are just sort of figuring out how to build a preset. And all I'm really going to go through in this video is exactly that, building a very simple preset, little amp, little cab block, maybe a couple of effects, and then showing you how to assign those to actual pedals on the Helix. But anyways, before we get into this, let's do a little rig rundown. I got my 2013 Les Paul Standard here. Got some custom shop pickups in it. Obviously going straight into the Helix, which is going into the Universal Audio Apollo X4 into Logic with no post-processing whatsoever. So what you're hearing is straight from the Helix and nothing else. But anyways, let's get into this. So if I look over here, this is obviously our signal path. And obviously the first thing you got to do, let's add an amp block. Now you can either do an amp and cab in one, which might save you a little bit of space in your signal chain, but I like to do an amp and then a cab separately. So let's go with, this is probably my favorite amp in the Helix, is the Placator Dirty, which is based off of a Friedman BE100. Which is a sick head, and it kind of does everything from those like nice crunch rock tones to like some pretty heavy shit. And then obviously the Placator Clean is also really nice. It's just based off of the clean channel of the B100. But anyways, so we got our amp block. Obviously it's not going to sound good because there is no cab, so it's going to sound like a chainsaw. So let's go right ahead and go to our cabs, and I'm going to go with like a little 412 V30 kind of vibe. Kind of digging that right now. See what it sounds like. That sounds pretty good for, not actually like really doing anything. I think there's a little too much treble in that. Maybe boost some of that low end. Turn down the channel, bring up the master. Turn it up. Sounds pretty good. Good enough for now. So that's how you get your basic tone. That's your plug in and play, ready to go. You got a tone. Now the next thing I like to do is I like to go over here, and as you can see, if you've watched my previous video on the most underrated feature that I think the Helix has that nobody really knows about is this guitar INSI thing, which is basically an impedance selector. And it kind of replicates, like if you're playing through a real amp and real pedals, obviously your signal is going to have to go through all those pedals. So there's going to be a little bit of resistance. It's going to affect your tone. So this kind of replicates that in a way. And it's usually always set to auto. And it'll see how many effects you have in your signal chain, and it'll kind of try and replicate what it would be like if you were plugged into all those pedals for real. I don't really like the auto setting. I don't really think it does anything. So I like to set it at 1,000,000, which is the least resistance, and then sort of dial it back from there. Let's see how this sounds. And usually my favorite settings are between 70 to 136. I find that's sort of like the sweet spot for my ears at least. But yeah, let's set it at 90, and yeah, that's what it sounds like. Nice. All right. The next thing that I kind of do when I'm building a preset right off the bat is I'll add a compressor. And the reason I do that is just to add a little bit of girth. Now my favorite compressor is the Deluxe Comp. And obviously you can use any, but I like this one because it gives you quite a few options as to like what you can do to affect your tone. So I actually don't use it, I guess, as like a normal way of using a compressor. I usually do parallel compression, which is usually used in recording a lot, but I kind of like using it live. So let's set it so it compresses it pretty hard. I'm going to set the attack decently fast, and then the release decently long. Set it to like a second. Let's hear what this sounds like with the mix at full. Turned off. And then let's mix it in to like 40%. So off, on. Let's play with the release a little bit, make it a little bit shorter. I like it. And also, if there's too much, you can sort of like dial it in with the level a little bit. Let's dial it back a little bit. Let's see what this sounds like. Sounds pretty damn good, if I say so. Now, obviously, like, I haven't really done much, but obviously you can see you have so many options as to how you can affect your tone. From the amp, you have your drive, your EQ. There's a couple switches on this, which are kind of cool. The HB, fat switch, the C45, the saturation, ripple, and obviously your bias, which is really cool. And then in your cab, obviously you have your mic selection, the distance of the mic from the speaker, low cut, high cut, early reflections, and your level. And obviously, you saw in the compressor, you have your threshold ratio, so on and so forth. There's so many different options. Now, a little rule of thumb when you're creating presets is when you put stuff on this side of your amp block, it's as if you're plugging it into the front of your amp. So that's normally where your like compressors, your gain blocks, some of your modulation, like maybe some phaser, would go there. Now you can obviously play with this. Like I know a lot of people sometimes will put compressors and other stuff on this side. Now when you put it on the other side, it's as if you're plugging it into the effects loop. So a lot of your time-based effects, your spacious effects like your reverbs, delays will go back here, and sometimes compressors too. It can kind of be really cool. I usually for my country presets will put the compressor in the effects loop. But anyways, let's just hear what the difference would be if I put it in the front versus the effects loop. Back in the front. And the biggest thing I notice is if you put it in the front and you crank the level on this compressor, it's going to add a lot more gain. Whereas if you put it in the effects loop and you crank the level, it's actually just going to add volume. So there's it kind of affects how the compressor works a little differently, which is really cool. And it gives you way more options. And it's mainly just a preference thing. There's really no right or wrong. But anyways, the next thing I like to do is add a little reverb. Give it a little space so it's not so dry. Let's go into here. So here's all your mono effects. And then obviously we click here. Your stereo effects, which are exactly the same. Reverbs just in stereo. And then your legacy, which are very different. So let's go with like a plate reverb. Let's see what this sounds like. Let's get rid of some of that high end. Oop, not the mix. Get rid of some of the high end. Keep hitting the mix. Yeah, that sounds pretty nasty. Now, let's see what happens if you put it in the front. Let's see what happens. And now that can be kind of a cool effect if that's what you're going for. But as you can see, that's usually why people put reverbs and stuff in the effects loop, just because you can kind of control it a little more. It's a little cleaner. But anyways, that's all really a preference thing, but I love to put those kind of effects in the effects loop. Now that we have a basic tone, we have a compressor, we have an amp, we have a cab, we have a little bit of reverb to add a little bit of space. Now you can kind of like go ahead and, pick some effects that you want to have on your pedal board that you can switch on and off, because all of these are going to be on all the time. So I think one of the first effects that I love to add is like a little distortion block, a little bit of boost. So let's go to our distortion. So we have this like crazy list. Obviously your fuzz effects are there as well. Let's go with one of my favorites, the hair apparent. I love this one because it's a very transparent, as I guess you can see, hair apparent, very transparent gain. And it doesn't really affect the tone of your original signal, which is really cool. It's very transparent, just adds some balls and some girth, which is nice. So let's turn it off for a sec, hear our tone, and turn it on. Sounds pretty good. But anyways, now that we have this, let's see how we can assign this to an actual pedal on the Helix itself, so you're not having to reach down and click it, or you can have the option of turning it on and off. So if we go here to bypass/controller assign, so here we select what the switch is actually going to control. So obviously we want it to control the bypass, which is basically on-off. Now we go here. Now right now it's assigned to nothing, but we can assign it to foot switch 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 8, 9, 10, 11. So let's do switch. Let's go with 8, which is basically your first switch on the bottom row. And obviously here you can do latching, which basically means when you hit it and you take your foot off, it's going to stay on. Or you can do momentary, which is basically if you have an effect that you only want on for like a note, then you can hit that button, keep your foot on it, it'll stay on, and as soon as you take off your foot, it'll turn right off. So let's leave it on latching. Obviously, there's like a bunch of MIDI options, which I never use. You can switch the color of the actual light around the foot switch on the Helix. Let's go with like a red, love red, and then obviously here you can change the name. So if you don't want hair apparent, you can change it to like distortion or gain or boost or whatever you want to call it. But anyways, the way to do that on the actual Helix itself is really cool. All the buttons are touch sensitive. So if you were to, let's say we unassign this. If you were to just hold your finger on the top of the foot switch that you want this assigned to, there'll be a little screen that pops up that'll say, it'll kind of show some of these where it's like your latching, your color, that kind of stuff. Just press OK and it'll assign right to that foot switch, which is really cool that they're all touch sensitive. But anyways, let's do one more effect. Let's go with like a delay. So if we go back to edit, here's our delays. Let's go with like a simple delay. Now right now it's in the front. Let's see what this sounds like. You see how it sounds kind of messy. It's kind of dirty. So let's put it in the effects loop. Turn that mix down. awesome. And we can do the exact same thing we did before. Let's assign it to the foot switch 3, so right next to the distortion block that we just put. And obviously, same thing, latching, momentary, your MIDI controls, and then your color, and then the actual name of it. But anyways, that's sort of like how you build a very basic preset. And you can do that with tons of effects. You can add your, if you go over to edit, all your, your EQs, your modulations, your reverbs, with some pitch, synth kind of stuff, some filters, some wah pedals. So one more thing I really want to show you guys is assigning a volume pedal, because that can be very useful. So if you go here, let's go to edit, volume pan. Now you can just select volume, and it's actually already assigned to your volume pedal. So if I reach over, and then if I put it in the front, same thing, but if I put it in the front, it's actually going to clean up my signal as I pull back. And then obviously in the effects loop, it's just going to affect the volume. Now, the only thing I don't like about this volume pedal is the fact that the swell, when you swell in, is very aggressive. It just kind of comes in very fast. So my favorite thing to do actually for volume is assign a gain block. And what you're going to do is you're going to go to bypass, because the gain block isn't going to automatically assign. So if I'm moving the volume pedal right now and it's not doing anything, so you need to assign it yourself. So you can see that bypass is assigned to expression pedal toe, which is exactly what you want. So if you hit down on the expression pedal and click that button, it'll turn that off and switch to a wah or something, or if you have something else there. So let's go to gain. In controller, we're going to assign it to expression pedal 2, because it's the one that I have lit up right now. And now you can choose your sort of the sweep that this volume pedal is going to have. So let's set the max gain at 0, and then I usually like to set the minimum gain at like 70, because it's so low you're not actually going to hear anything. So let's set it to 70. So if I go all the way down now, you're not going to hear anything, but and it's such a gradual swell, and I absolutely love that. It's not aggressive at all, and it gives you tons of options to do volume swells. Like, and it's very gradual, which I really like. And then obviously you can put it in the front too, and that's going to affect your actual gain. Which is why I like to put it here, because it actually will affect just the volume, not the gain. But anyways, this is sort of like your very basic preset. Plug in and play. This will get you started. And I really hope this helped, and it was like sort of basic enough. And the Helix is also a very user-friendly interface and a very user-friendly pedal board and multi-effects unit. So it is very easy to navigate, but I just wanted to help in case anybody was a little confused about sort of getting a preset started. The last thing I do want to show you is obviously there's not a ton of room up here in your signal path. Like, you have room for maybe one more effect. So the best thing you can do, go here, you press this. Oops. You press this and you go to your output and you go path 2A. And what that does is it connects your top path to your bottom path. So you have way more room for more effects if you need them, which is amazing. But anyways, I don't want to ramble too long. I really hope this video helped for anybody who has just gotten a Helix and looking to start off making a basic preset just to sort of, play around with and sort of get to know the ropes of the Helix. But anyways, my name's Aiden Jacobs. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you guys for watching.